Yes, sir.
Today, we will talk about a new chapter, a new topic that is cell membranes and transport.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that we want to ask? We have completed that.
Yes, sir.
So last time we have discussed about inhibitors.
सर जी आपकी आवाज़ अभी
Discuss.
बहुत कम आ रही है.
Last time we have discussed about inhibitors, and there you have discussed about different types of inhibitors,
Yes,
specifically
sir.
competitive, non-competitive
Yes, sir.
inhibitors, and reversible and irreversible inhibitors. By
Yes, sir.
just by their names, I think we can easily define them, and you should know at least examples.
Yes, sir.
That example, maybe some specific example, or at least you can show it by using a diagram, so that anybody can easily differentiate all that.
Yes,
All right.
sir.
So today, yeah, I have this, how to do this. ये लाइन कैसे है? Fine. So today we will discuss the some other basic concepts related to cell membranes and transport. Cell membrane and transport. Cell membrane and transport.
Yes, sir.
In this topic, what we are going to discuss specifically, that is related to cell membrane. Uh, then we will talk about its function in detail,
Yes.
similar ways, some types of movements that we will discuss here in this topic, and types of transport, that how transport is taking place in case of cell.
Yes,
So
sir.
the first thing that we need to discuss, that is cell membrane.
Yes, sir.
Cell membrane. Cell membrane. As you know, it is the outer boundary in case of plants and animal cells,
Yes, sir.
and its function is to help in transportation
Yes, sir.
and to maintain the shape of the cell. There are many other functions, but more specifically, we say it is the uh, outer boundary in cell, and when we differentiate in case of plants and animals, so in case of animals, it is the outermost bound. While
Yes.
in case of plants, we have another layer of, you can say, that is not a membrane, but that's a boundary which is called cell wall.
Yeah.
So cell membrane is,
सर जी आप लिख रहे
here we need, don't you have screen?
नहीं सर, स्टक है एक जगह.
Start.
Yes sir.
Share.
Yes sir.
Okay. All right. So in cell membrane, uh, whenever we want to understand its structure and function,
Yes sir.
we always get help from a very basic model that is called fluid mosaic model.
Yes sir.
Fluid mosaic model. This model actually helps us to understand that what is the structure of this cell membrane and how this structure helps a cell to maintain its shape and transport the material from inside to outside or from outside to inside.
Yes sir.
So fluid mosaic model, the first thing that we always study about it, that is phospholipids bilayer.
Yes sir.
Phospholipid bilayer.
Yes sir.
It is the basic structural unit of the cell membrane,
Yes sir.
right? The basic structure of the cell membrane is composed of phospholipids, and I think you should have the structure of this phospholipid in your mind because we have studied it in our previous chapter there in biochemistry, that how the phospholipids are arranged, and there we have studied that at the place of third fatty acid tail, there was a phosphate there, right? So
Yes sir.
third fatty acid chain was replaced by a phosphate, uh, and two fatty acid tails as. So we have studied about the structure of the phospholipids. All right.
Yes
So
sir.
it is a basic structure, and we know that like it always arranged in a shape like this.
Yes sir.
There are continuous layer of heads on both side of the membrane like this, and these tails are inside towards each other like this. All right. So this is how these phospholipids are arranged. Okay. So this is a
Yes sir.
phospholipid bilayer because these two layers which are arranged in the cell membrane of any plant or animal cells. And there is another component which is the part of this, that is cholesterol. Cholesterol. Uh, it is a component which is commonly scattered in the phospholipids, just like it is arranged. For instance, it is present here. Similarly, it may also present here. It may also present here. All right. So it is scattered in the phospholipids, right? Like these red dots which I have shown you on this diagram. And what their role specifically in the cell membrane, they maintain the fluidity of fluid nature of that cell membrane because it is lipid bilayer mosaic model. We have shown a word here, word we have used mosaic. What does it mean, mosaic?
Mm, no idea, sir.
Mosaic means like it is you can say a dual nature, a mixture, right? Something which has a different composition. It is not composed of only solid, but its overall structure is like a fluid mosaic. That's why we call it fluid mosaic model. We should get this idea from here as well. Fluid. So
Yes, sir.
something that has ability to flow. So this cholesterol is actually helping the cell membrane to maintain its fluidity, and it also enhance the mechanical stability. The
O-
second function of this cholesterol in the cell membrane is to enhance the mechanical stability. What do you mean by this mechanical stability? When any type of pressure when that exerts on this cell membrane, so this cell membrane is not going to lose its overall structure, right? So that membrane has to bear the pressure by the transportation of the pressure of the water, whatever it is. So
Yes,
it
sir.
enhances the mechanical stability. It provides stability to the cell membrane, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
this cholesterol has these two functions in the cell membrane. Then you have another component that is uh, protein. That is protein.
Yes, sir.
So these protein molecules which are embedded in the bilayer, right?
Yes, sir.
For instance, you have this bilayer here. So if you want to show here protein structure, then it would be like this. Uh,
Yes, sir.
like you may have this curve, like this. It is a protein. It is a protein structure,
Okay, sir.
right? Like this. It is embedded in the phospholipid bilayer. Although protein is present in some other ways as well, the protein will also be present on the surface of the membrane, that is also embedded but not completely, that is attached on the phospholipid layer. So right now we are showing embedded protein because protein is present in many forms there. Somewhere these proteins are present inside the cell, in the cytoplasm, uh, in a floating nature. So this protein may also be present on the surface of the phospholipid. There it acts as a receptor. So
Yes, sir.
in this case that I have shown here, so this is an embedded uh, molecule of protein which is present in this lipid bilayer. So here it is functioning as a transporting protein, that it helps the substances which are coming from outside. They may transport through this protein and they will cross this lipid bilayer and get into the cytoplasm, right? So here its important function is for transporting substances across the membrane, right?
Yes, sir.
transporting substances, those substances which are not able to pass through the lipid bilayer with the help of water. So those substances, they have to attach to a certain specific solid substance in this lipid bilayer, and that will actually help that substance to get into the cytoplasm. All right. So its function is transporting substances across the membrane. Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
So this is how we can show these different substances which are present here. And because we are right now just talking about the structure of this lipid bilayer, although some carbohydrates that may also present, but they are outside. Right now we are considering specifically the lipid bilayer, in which we want to understand that what type of components which are present in the lipid bilayer membrane. All right. So we have already discussed the nature of this phospholipid, and it would be just a repetition here that we know that how this phospholipid is acting as a hydrophobic and hydrophilic in nature.
Yes,
Like
sir.
we have studied about this, that for instance you have this example here in this case, and we can easily categorize it like I'm saying, like here is organic solvent on this side, and you may have water on this side, because we can show that this head is actually what? It is a phosphate, and this phosphate is having the character of hydrophilic in nature, right?
Yes,
Hydrophilic head. This phosphate head is actually the hydrophilic head. It is water loving,
yes, sir.
right? On the other side you have this tail, and this tail is what? This tail is hydrophobic in nature. Hydrophobic fatty acid tail. So this is how these two components, head and two tails, which are arranged in the phospholipids, and it is consists of unsaturated short tails, uh, increased fluidity. I have told you that when we have discussed this in our lecture, that how this fatty acid in the tail is arranged. There we have shown somewhere double bond as well in the carbon atoms. So that's why we call it unsaturated tail. It is unsaturated because there would be a one or two double bonds which are present in the carbon atoms, right? So that's why we call it unsaturated short tails. And this double the presence of double bond actually helps this overall structure of the phospholipid to maintain its fluid nature, right? So now you can easily get this idea how this cell membrane is act like a fluid. So there are many things which are providing it help. Like we have studied about the cholesterol, that cholesterol is also providing the fluidity nature to the cell membrane, and as well as this phospholipid right now, specifically these two tails and unsaturated tails, remember, where you have one or two double bonds in the carbon atoms. So how much number of double bonds you may have in the carbon atoms, you will get more fluidity in the cell membrane, right? Are you getting this point?
Yes.
So now another concept that you should keep in mind, that is micelles. Do you have an idea about it before? Micelles.
No, sir.
Micelles. So uh, micelles are actually a specific structure. Uh, when phospholipids are shaken in water, they
Okay.
form a ball-like structure called micelle.
Okay, sir.
Are you getting? When phospholipids are shaken in water,
Yes, sir.
in water, and they form a ball-like structure, ball-like
Sure.
structure that is called micelle. Now the question is that why, when you put these phospholipids or expose these phospholipids to water, and why these phospholipids are going to form a ball-like structure? That's the question we need to address. Right?
Yes, sir.
Called micelle. So I have told you previously that its nature of the phospholipid is in a way that it has to be like a ball shape. Why? Because, for instance, you have a condition like this. I'm going to show you a micelle here. Uh, should be very ball, very straight like this.
Okay, sir.
Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
So this is called micelle. Now, can you get this idea that why, for instance, you have exposed this to water? There is an aqueous solution here.
Yes, sir.
There is an aqueous solution outside of this. हाँ भेजो बेटा, उसको बोलो इसमें थोड़ी काम डालो, स्पाइसी का करो। अच्छा, anyway, so this is an aqueous solution outside here, so it forms a micelle like this. Now why it is?
Uh,
What do you think? These tails are having character that is
hydrophobic.
hydro hydrophobic. Hydrophobic. So it's very simple that if something is heading water, and if you will expose that thing in front of that water, so definitely that will try to avoid it. What? Why this micelle is formed here? This micelle is formed because these tails are actually avoiding the exposure of water.
Yes, sir.
These tails don't want to expose to water because these tails are water hatting.
Yes, sir.
They have hydrophobic nature. So that's why they all aggregated inside of this micelle structure so that they can avoid the water exposure. Are you getting?
Yes, sir.
So this is hydrophobic tails. All these hydrophobic tails, they aggregated in a specific way so that they can avoid the water exposure. All
Yes.
right, beta. Okay. Now we can also uh, draw a structure of cell membrane as well. That if we want to inside that structure completely, that how it looks, uh, and what type of different components which are present in it. So composition of cell membrane. Again, we are going to understand it in detail, that what type of components which are present in the cell membrane. Individually, we have discussed few components like phospholipids, like you understand the cholesterol, you know about the proteins and how they are arranged, uh, that we have already studied this.
Ye-
Composition of cell cell membrane. Composition of cell membrane. So again, we can mention its structure like this. Like you have a structure okay, like this. All right.
Yes, sir.
So there you have some proteins which are arranged inside of this, right?
Yes, sir.
And there was another protein that I have shown previously as well. So this is also arranged here. Again, you have the phospholipid continuous layer like this.
Yes, sir.
Right. So there you have a channel like this,
Yes, sir.
which would help some substances to get in. Again, you have a structure. All right. So now this protein that it has some other structures like this. What is this?
A receptor.
What its composition? What the structure is actually shown? Is it not a sugar like carbohydrates? Hmm?
Yes, sir.
These six carbon molecules, which are actually showing you that these are some sugars, right? Which are arranged on it. So here you have number of components. Like this is what we call glycoprotein. Why glycoprotein? Because it is the glucose here. On the one side you have sugar in the carbohydrates, and here you have a protein, so it is called glycoprotein, right? We have
Yes.
also somewhere you can mention here cholesterol as well here. So so there like I can show here. You can mention its head and like these tails. It's a cholesterol because it is a lipid, so its structure will be like this because it is also
Yes.
present here.
Yes, sir.
So carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, all of the structures are present here. So here you have inside proteins, and somewhere you will observe the outside proteins, like you may have some other proteins. So it is a you can label them. It is a lipid bilayer, and this is glycolipids or oil like somewhere you will see that there would be some sugar which are directly connected on this structure like this. So it
Yes, sir.
would be a glycolipid because it is directly connected with the lipids, phospholipids, which are present in the cell membrane. So what we have learned here, that how these structures are present, right? So just quickly we can discuss one thing more, and then we will further explore the types of proteins which are present here, that you can easily observe the proteins which are present. Some proteins are inside, some proteins are between these lipid bilayers, some may also be present outside of this structure. So we will also try to understand that how these proteins are there, what's their function, and but before that we need to talk about, because we have discussed its composition, so now we can discuss about its function as well. So I think it's very easy for you to understand that functions of the components of the cell membrane that I have shown you, the phospholipid bilayer. Phospholipid bilayer function, first you need to understand. This is phospholipid bilayer. So now we need to dig out that how these phospholipid bilayer are performing its function here. These are non-polar,
Yes, sir.
right? Because it is organic molecules and higher, so that's why it is non-polar here. And for polar molecules and ions to pass through, act as a barrier for water soluble molecules like glucose, amino acids, and proteins,
Yes, sir.
right? It is a non-polar. Any substance which is present inside or outside, that is a polar. It is not possible to pass through this membrane because this membrane will act as a barrier,
Yes, sir.
right? What's its function actually? Its function is to provide a barrier. So anything that is water soluble, any substance that is water soluble will not be able to pass through this. For instance, we have a glucose. If you are, this glucose will not be able to pass through this membrane because it is providing as a barrier, because it is non-polar. So it will not allow to pass the polar substances through it, right? Only a small non-polar molecules can pass, like oxygen and carbon dioxide. These are two non-polar substances. As you know, like dissolved, like we can say here, the only similar substances can pass through this barrier, and that is oxygen and what? Carbon dioxide, because both are these non-polar.
Yes, sir.
And this membrane is also non-polar. So it will allow somewhere without any restriction to this oxygen and carbon dioxide. But normally most of other substances which are water soluble, they are not allowed to pass through this membrane, right? So it is its function. Are you getting this point?
Yes, sir.
So steroids, progesterone can also pass through this bilayer, because these steroids are also non-polar, as you know, steroids, uh, higher lipids as well. Some, for instance, these we can have an example of progesterone. It is a hormone, uh, lipid hormone, or you can say a steroid hormone, progesterone, which is present in females, just like testosterone in male, and there is a progesterone which is present in females that helps them in pregnancy and other functions. So this can also pass through this membrane, right? So some of the water molecules can also pass, as they are small molecule and can escape through the lipid bilayer, right? So because water, not all the water molecules, but few water molecules, because they have the very small size, so they can somehow escape through this lipid bilayer. Otherwise, this lipid bilayer is not allowing to pass through any substance, specifically those substances which are soluble in water, and more specifically, this they have the larger size. They cannot pass through this membrane because this membrane is providing as a barrier, right?
Sir.
So this is its first function. Now another component
Yes, sir.
that we have to study about in detail, that is protein, because it has a very major role in the cell membrane. Somewhere you will see that these proteins are acting as a channel. Somewhere you will observe that these proteins will work as a carrier. Uh, uh, Somewhere you will understand that these proteins are the structural part of the cell membrane. So they have various functions inside the cell membrane, right?
Yes, sir.
So in our next lecture, we will also understand that how these different types of proteins are different proteins which are present in the cell membrane, how they are performing their function, and how we can dissect that um, they are performing a very specific functions of channel, of the carriers, how different substances which are not allowed by the general structure of the cell membrane, how those substances get into the body or into the cell, and how those substances which are inside of the cell, how they are coming out,
Yes.
how these proteins are performing their function, and they are helping, they are all proteins which are helping to pass these substances through it, right? So we will understand how they, it also helps in cell signaling, because it is very vast function. Right now we are just considering a very, because at your level you just need to understand how these proteins are performing their very major functions here, but uh, in detail we have the number of proteins which are performing their role in cell signaling. They are acting as a receptors, because if they are acting as a receptor, so that's why some signals can pass through them, and there will be some effectors and some receptors as well. So there will be some proteins which would help these cells to combine with each other, to adhere with one another in a tissue. So we will talk about these structures in detail. Yeah, I mean, uh, here we will focus on the cell signaling, specifically how a cell perform its function, how a signal can pass through it, how the signal can get into the cell, and what that signal causes the change in the cell structure as well, right?
Yes, sir.
So we will talk about the movement of molecules into and outside of the cell in our next lecture. So it
Yes.
is more specifically towards the functioning of the cell, that function that we need to understand, because it is the core concept in the cell membrane, because all types of movements, all types of functions are possible because of the presence of these proteins, and possibility is all because of the receptors and channels which help the substances to get into the cell or to come out of the cell. So that's why we need to understand all of these concepts in detail, right,
Yes.
Vida? So
Yes,
I
sir.
think we should conclude this topic here, and in our next topic we will talk about different
Yes.
types of proteins and their functions. All right,
Yes, sir.
so that's all.